Hi, welcome. This is Ricksgonz with my build for Tanky Kong. Basically, going to go over some of the things with the most random queue that I could get, and I'm just going to explain a couple of things about the build and how I play and what do I do, what I do. So this is just the most basic random queue that I could get the video from, and then I'm going to go ahead and just explain a couple of things. If you want to see the full build, just go to the link on the MMO Mine, and there's a full explanation on that. This is more of a commentary on the gameplay itself and why do I play that I do. So basically, for this tank, what I want to do is be able to, instead of just hold it by myself, I know I can survive. It's stun my enemy. So I use a lot of Burning Light and Templar's Wrath, and I try to do that as long as I see that little eye that you see there, and see if I can cancel it, especially in T9. Also in MSPC or Master Spellplate, it is super useful. And also at the same time, be able to protect my team. So that's why you see me throw in the shield a lot. And that shield has two purposes: not only to protect my team, but also, as you can see in the video right now, it activates that burning guidance and the Routh and Warmth, and so it starts doing some DPS too. So as you protect your team, you can also do some DPS, and in my build that also heals. So that healing that my build have also starts those boons, the burning guidance and the Routh and Warmth, and a lot others, whatever little boon that activates by healing and then gives a little DPS there. That's basically what I put into my build. So you will see in this video that I have a multi DPS build loadout and also a single DPS loadout, and that's because on my multi I want to be as fast as possible. I want to get there, make sure the DPS doesn't get before me, and stun the crowd. They don't know what I'm doing, so the DPS is always going to try to get in first because he wants obviously to be on the table, the DPS table, but you will, as a tank, want to make sure that you get there first. So on my multi DPS loadout, I have all the speed that I need, and I got a lot of healing and protection because there I'm also focusing on the encounters. So on my multi DPS loadout, I'm not really hitting with my R2 and L2 and R2, sorry. I'm just basically popping a lot of encounters, making sure I stun, making sure I heal, and making sure I get my action points back up so I can throw that Shield of Faith again and cure. And then as I cure, I am also activating the boons that also give me a little bit of DPS. So the good thing about that is that you can either use the Shield of Faith for it, or you can use the dagger. And by dagger, I mean Divine Judgment. I will fast forward through the parts of the video of the T9 that you don't really need to see the build working. So I'm just going to fast forward through those, so the video is a little bit shorter. Another thing that you'll see is when I'm running my multi DPS loadout, it is not easy, to make sure that the enemy hits me. So sometimes I go in with the burning light first, so they can hit me a little bit and get my life down, because I use Aura of Wrath for that specific build, because I want to give my team more damage. It's not easy to get used to, and sometimes you die, and that is why I use the Soul Forge in those moments. But actually, as a tank, you don't really need any. You can use whatever enchantment you want on you. I specifically use it because of the way that I play. As I mentioned, sometimes I want to play with the life that I'm given, see if I can give my team a little bit more of damage. And that's why I use that specific. But actually, when you reach the medium to high level, you really don't. You can put whatever you want in that armor enchantment. It doesn't really matter. Another thing there of I usually don't like copying a build exactly as it is. You gotta get used to your own rhythm and see how it works. So if you don't want to put those points in activating the healing, that I might lose some of DPS in healing, but you can also activate those boons, which I mentioned are very important on the build. by doing your R3. So once you pop up your little protection circle there, that also heals and also activates the burning guidance and the relevant warmth from the boons. So basically what you want is to be able to have a lot of action point gain, however you want to get it. It doesn't matter. There's different ways. I don't really go into each single thing. There's several ways to do things in the game. So just make sure you can pop that Shield of Faith and Divine Judgment, and that way you activate the healing from the feats that I put on the build. And that's basically what you want to do. If you're protecting or you're DPSing, having that Shield of Fate up helps a lot, and having that Divine Judgment hit several times within a rotation also gives you the DPS and healing in the case of my build. So now, as you can see, I switched to my single DPS loadout, and that one is I use very specific things. I want a DPS, but I also want to heal. So I have more DPS feats on this specific loadout, and a little bit less healing, just for this specific loadout. What you will see when you check up the build is that on this build I use the power from the boons and then the maximum hit points, because on this specific build I want to use my Hour of Courage. Remember that Hour of Courage, what matters is the life on you. That's what makes you hit. It doesn't matter. The DPS has to use his own life to make sure that he gets the Hour of Courage from you specifically. So it's not about the life that you have that enables the DPS to hit harder. It's the maximum hit points that the DPS have, as long as you have that Hour of Courage activated. So if you want to hit, then you can use the maximum hit points. You don't really need to use the maximum hit points boons. If you just want to tank, you don't actually need it. But if you want to be a DPS or hit a little, or do a little bit more DPS, then you can choose that maximum hit points boon on the loadout, which is what I did here. So on my multi DPS loadout, I use the defense, and that's because when I go in by myself, I want to make sure that I can take it a little bit more. And remember that's because I play with my life on that build. So because if I play with my life on the build because I want to give damage to my team, there I use defense, and then on my single DPS build I use the maximum hit points boon from the guild. So another thing that you'll see on my single DPS loadout is that I use the Wheel of Element. What I do with it is I don't use it for me, so I can do more DPS. I only use it on the single DPS loadout, so I can place it on whoever is the highest DPS in queue at the moment, because that enables you to do the queue faster, and that's what you want. Don't be that selfish DPS who either tank DPS who either takes the wheel for himself or just uses the soul side crystal, which I do have it if I just want to run it and just want to make we have a good team, I just want to have fun, whatever. But if you want to be well, you want to make sure that the queue runs as smooth as possible, and you want to help as a tank your team the most that you can. You also want to place that Wheel and Elements on that high DPS. Whoever is the highest DPS, or did you know that hits really hard on especially the single or the mono phase, make sure you put that Wheel Elements on him. And that is something that is hard to do. You could place it at the beginning, and that's easy, but to place it while the dungeon is going on, while he's moving back and forth or whatever, that's the hardest part. So what I do is that I aim that little circle at the name of the person that I want to place it. So if I'm at a good distance and I can see their name either in front of me, or if I can see it on the side, I just turn, look at him, and I put the Wheel of Elements, and that will put the fire on him. So that's a really good way also in helping your team. So another thing that you notice on the once I switch to the single DPS is that the encounters also change. So I use that Circle of Power still because I want to protect my team. At the same time, I want to do some more DPS. I use the Bane, so I can hit harder and my team can hit harder. And also I use the different shield. I don't use the Shield of Faith. I use the Bubble, or what they call the Bubble, which is the protection. And that's because sometimes I play with Guardian Fighters and they take a lot of the aggro. Now, this Orcus here, just for you to know, if you're a tank, they did change it a little bit, so forget about the aggro. It does whatever he wants. So there's no aggro that you can put in this. You can put the Bane, you can put the Vow. Nothing works. He will just look at whoever has the damage buff and hit him randomly. So what you could do again is what I do is you can either use the Shield of Faith to protect and heal in the case, or you can use the protection bubble so you can also protect them. I use it specifically because I don't have to be changing, but I use it specifically because when I play with Guardian Fighters and they take the aggro, when they do their rotation and they use that I don't remember the name of the encounter, but the one-on-one, the one-on-one that makes them the enemy look at them. That's when I do the bubble to make sure that when it hits them, it protects them, and then and that way I'm also protecting my team. Since you are unable to remove the aggro from them, that is a very important way that you can protect your team. And at the same time, as you can see, when I pop that shield or either the Divine Judgment, it also on my single DPS loadout also activates the Burning Guidance and the other Wrath and Warmth boons that enable me to also do a little bit of DPS at the same time. So that's also a good option. A little short commentary here. As you notice, when I get down here, usually if you have a group that you know how to play and you know how they play, you will wait for that anointed army from the DC before you get down. But as you can see, as I mentioned, this is just a random queue that I just got to make sure that this kind of play and the build you can see it in action. So you can play whatever kind of you don't have to play with the most elite or the medium. You can play with the variety of groups, and that this build will work. So here you can see when I pop up the divine judgment, you can see how the burning. You can see all the hits from that burning guidance and the Rothen Worm. You can see it's a lot. It's small numbers, but that start adding up. Trust me. So again, as I mentioned, you can also pop up with the Shield of Faith. If you do Shield of Faith, you will do more damage um, with the boon. If you use Divine Judgment, then you will do more damage with the sword itself, but it would also activate the same boon. So because of Divine Judgment, of the healing that it gives, and of the feats that I put in the build, it will activate it more for a longer time, but it will also work for either one. Again, the same thing. You always want to be the first there. That's why you want to have a lot of movement. So when you pop your artifact and then you do the daily, then you get a lot of speed. You want to be the first one there. Why? Because you want to be able to control the situation, as I just did here. See, I got the whole mob, and I control it. I activate my healing, and then you start doing the damage, and that way you control the queue. As a tank, that's what you should do. And I know it is really hard when you have those really fast DPSs getting before you. You could tell them just to wait for you. That way you can help them, because as I mentioned, part of the way I run specifically is by stunning. So that's how I protect my team. I can't hold the sometimes you can't hold the aggro for all of them. So what you do best is by stunning using the Burning Light and the Templar's Wrath, and you do that as much as possible. Also, it's very important that either when you're running multi DPS, the multi DPS loadout, or the single DPS loadout, that even if you don't need the at the moment to use to encounter, just use it because of the feats that you have. So every time, remember, in your tank, every time you pop an encounter, it helps to reset the encounters for your teammates. So that's really important. Even if you don't need to put the Succor power, even if you don't need the Temple Drive at that moment, whatever encounters you're using, just keep spamming them, because that would help your team, especially when you're in the single DPS phase, because that will enable them to make the rotation faster. Obviously, in the single DPS, I don't use Hour of Wrath, but I use Hour of Wisdom, and that's because in that rotation, when you are in the single phase of a boss or whatever it is, you want to make sure that your team can do their rotation the multiple times. So, for example, the Garden Fighter or the Grey Weapon Fighter, you want to make sure that they do their rotation faster. So you want to use that Hour of Wisdom, and you want to make sure that you start hitting your encounters as soon as you have them, to make sure that you reset theirs too, and that is also very useful. The tanks don't usually get credit. The people also think that only the hastening light from the DCs is the one that shortens the thing. No, the tank actually shortens every encounter and rotation by a lot. So although we don't get credit for that, that is very important to help the other DCs and also to your team. So this is pretty much the end of the video. I just wanted to explain a little bit of how I play and how the build is made. As I mentioned, this is only a different way of doing it. There's multiple ways of doing it. It's just a little bit of power share, a little bit of DPS, but most important for me, it's to do the tanking correctly. So either by protecting or healing, that's very important. I'm gonna try to upload another video of the healing, another cube where you can see where I tank and also heal, and that's probably going to be useful when you have a low DCs or just one DC and you want to help them in healing a little bit. So I'll probably be uploading that too. But as for now, I just hope you enjoy it and you can see the different way that the tank can be played. And remember, it's different from what is out there, especially with the new mod 14 coming out. With my build, you should be able to get more critical chance from your stats, and that way focus on that armor penetration that you're gonna have to take from somewhere. So hope you enjoyed. Thank you.